Hey everybody, welcome to Authbition. It's authenticity and ambition, bringing together vulnerability, non-attachment, caring, thoughtfulness, and whole-mindedness. Today I'm testing out a new camera setup and a new mic. I'm sitting outside. I think you should probably be able to hear the city sounds and the wildlife and maybe some cicadas in the background. But hopefully the sound is really good. I got this new Tula mic thing. Here, I'm going to put it up to the camera. Yeah, check it out. Check it out. So we'll see how this does. I've had some episodes with some pretty bad sound, so I wanted to try something new. And the new camera setup, see how that goes. Anyway, this week I want to talk about bicycles. I love bikes. I ride a lot of bikes. And so I'm going to read an essay about me riding a bike as a kid when I used to deliver newspapers. But before that, I want to get into a whole mind game that I played a couple of weeks ago while I was on my bike. Or I thought about it while I was on my bike, and then I got home and I kind of dug in on this concept. But where it started was I'd just been kind of getting maybe a little down on myself, second guessing, have I reached the peak? I'm 52 right now, and it's like I haven't had a great ride in a really long time. I feel like I'm slowing down a little bit. And so a couple of weeks ago, I was out on a ride, and I came to this slight hill. It wasn't a big hill. It was just like a gradual hill, and I was on maybe a 25 mile ride, and I was on this gradual hill, and I just felt like I had two choices at that moment. I felt like I needed to shift into an easier gear, or I needed to just pedal faster. One of those two things had to happen. Otherwise, I was like just in an uncomfortable gear at an uncomfortable speed going up this hill. And as I thought about it at that moment, I said, man, this is a this or that situation. Either shift into an easier gear or pedal faster. And whenever I find myself in a this or that situation, it's a perfect time to play the whole mind game. And so I had, just an average ride. It was as typical as it's been over the past couple of months. And when I got home, I played the game. And so I just want to kind of tell you how it went. I'm reading my notes right now from the game that I played that day, and I'll just read to you some of the things I said. So yesterday, I was riding my bike. I got to a hill where I felt like I had an either or situation, either increase my cadence or lower my gear. I thought this would be fun to explore. And so that's what I went with: increase cadence and lower gear. Try to put myself into that mindset of yes and thinking. That's how I start the whole mind game. And the way we play is what's the best of the best, what's the worst of the worst of this tension. All right. So what's the best of increase cadence? And I said, you go faster. It's simple, right? You increase cadence, you go faster. And another word would be activation. Okay, so that's the best of increasing my cadence. And what's the worst of increasing my cadence? And my answer was burnout. And just thinking that spinning faster, I might go up the hill quicker, but if I overdo it, I'm going to flame out, and that's not good. So another word for it would be over exertion. So I might be moving faster, but there's this hidden cost of burning out, especially on a long ride. You know, it was maybe earlier in the ride and I had a long way to go, so you don't want to burn all your matches too early in a ride. So that was one side. That was the best and the worst of increasing cadence. And then if I looked at the other side, what's the best of lowering the gear? And I thought, hey, lowering the gear is just more efficient for climbing, right? So efficiency. And I'm reducing my strain. I'm letting the mechanics of the bicycle, the gear, carry more of the load. It's smart to ride that way. Maybe another word for it would be sustainability. It's not flashy, but it's a way to just keep the ride going without burning out. So just be more efficient. What's the worst of the lower gear? And I got bugs flying around me. And in this case, my answer was lose momentum and speed, and it could take too long. Sometimes it's just, I just feel like stagnating. Like, oh man, it's just taking me forever to get up this hill. And it just feels like I'm crawling. Feels like I'm disconnected. I'm moving, but I'm not really going anywhere. So, that's the price you pay for going into that lower gear, right? So, what's the best of the best? The best of the two words. So, go faster, and efficiency, like that's the best of the best. Like, the best of increasing my cadence is to go faster. The best of lowering the gear is efficiency. So I want to go faster and be more efficient, right? And so instead of getting that efficiency from the lower gear, sometimes I can find it in my pedal stroke. This is what I thought about. So what if I can just stay in the same gear and focus on my form? It's more of an internal efficiency, right? It's like saying I don't have to slow down to be efficient. I can be more skillful in my riding. So a few other words for this: flow power, skilled momentum, effortless drive, and the answer that I put down for this synergy was pedaling with ease. How can I pedal with ease? What's the worst of the worst? So in this case, increasing my cadence is a burnout. Lowering my gear, I lose momentum, I go too slow. So you don't want to burn out and lose momentum, right? So that's the worst of both things, right? And in that case, my answer was just defeated. I just feel defeated. It just feels like a wasted effort. And so if we look at it, again, my synergy is pedaling with ease. The shadow side of that is feeling defeated. And, I like to think about 3 ways that I can get to that synergy. So a couple of those 3 ways that I thought about: refine form before forcing speeds. Just think about my form in that moment. When I hit that hill, think about my form. Honor my rhythm as power. Shift internally first. So instead of hitting that shifter to get into that easier gear, make that shift an internal shift. And so that's what I did. And what's really cool is that I got back out on the bike a couple of days later, and I had one of the best rides I've ever had. There's a hill in Umstead Park that I've been riding up. It's called the Corkscrew. I've had about 250 attempts at that hill. And looks like I'm in a shadow here, but anyway, I've had about 250 attempts at that hill. and I've been riding it for 20 years. Over 20 years I've been riding that same hill, and here I am 52, and I got a PR. I PR'd the hill, and I got home that day and I was like, I thought I was going downhill. I thought it was over, and I focused on my internal efficiency. I focused on pedaling with ease. I focused on finding that efficiency in me instead of going to the bike first to find that efficiency, and I ended up getting a PR on that hill. And the past week has been just a great week. In the past 7 days, I think I cycled close to 170 miles. I had gone on a really hard and fast ride, a 40-mile ride that was, really intense on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, I did about a 20-mile, really, really hard ride. I was planning on taking Friday off, and Thursday afternoon, I got a text from my buddy saying, "Hey, you want to go on a long ride tomorrow?" And we ended up doing 90 miles. We rode from where I'm in Raleigh right now. We rode to Durham and back, and we did a 90-mile ride. So here I am, just a couple of weeks ago, thinking, man, I'm on a downhill slide here, and I used the whole mind game, found the synergy phrase of pedal with ease, and I took it back to the bike. I ended up having a PR. I ended up having one of the best cycling weeks of my life. So, a plug for whole mind thinking. If you don't know about it, I talk about it in a lot of the episodes, so check it out. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story. I am going to read an essay right now, and of course I switched off of the essay that I'm going to read, so just give me 1 minute while I go grab it up here. It is a story about me delivering newspapers as a kid, and it's called The Paperboy Entrepreneur. This essay I published it April 27th, 2024, so it's been a while ago, and it was before I was in the partner program at Medium. It was before I was publishing in any of the publications, so this is a self-published story from a while ago. And I say a grammar school job taught me everything I needed to succeed. The Paperboy Entrepreneur. So I hope you enjoy it. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. There's a cool photograph here of me as a kid next to the collector, which you'll learn about in the story. Okay, so I'm going to read it. I'm not sure where my entrepreneurial spirit came from. My grandfather was a pioneer in the New York City film industry. Growing up around movie sets and stars and hearing pop stories of risking his life to start a union certainly had an impact. In the nature versus nurture debate, I had a healthy dose of both. All I know is that I started early. I began delivering the Bergen Record in the 3rd grade when I was about 9 years old. I would wake up every morning before dawn and ride my bike to a drop-off site. This was a corner at the start of my route where a truck would leave a stack of newspapers and plastic bags. I would start by flipping open my knife, cutting the string that wrapped the stack of papers together, rolling each paper into a tube, sliding it into a bag, and then putting it into my sack. After all the papers were stuffed into the sack, I'd sling it over my shoulder and ride my bike through town, tossing the daily news onto front porches around town. By the time I got done and back home, I would have just enough time to eat some breakfast and walk up to school. That was only part of the job. Every 2 weeks, I would have to walk door to door and collect money from the subscribers. I usually did this in the evenings, after most people were home from work. Some of the people would leave their money in an envelope under the doormat or inside their storm door. Others would come to a window after ringing the bell and toss the money down to me. Others would answer the door and hand me the money. It was a fully cash-based business where figuring out change for people who only had large bills did not include a register or a calculator. Some people would give me a nice tip. They usually lived in the small houses at the bottom of the hill. Some people would give me, or other people would give me no tip, like a very small tip, or no tip at all. And they usually lived in the big houses at the top of the hill. I would have some people who missed week after week, and if they went into collections, that was on me to collect. And some people paid several weeks in advance, and that was up to me to hold like a bank and be careful not to spend. The sun's just like, I'm taking a break from reading, the sun's just like coming into view and blasting me right now, and my video is getting worse. Okay, so I had to be careful not to spend that money. Like if they paid me in advance, I'm holding this cash, I had to hold it. Managing that cash was critical. It was especially critical when the collector would show up looking for his cut. If a bunch of people paid me in advance, he wasn't looking for that. He just collected the 2-week balance for the subscribers. So if I had a lot of extra cash to manage and were tempted to spend it, that would mean being short when the collector showed up. I knew exactly how many cents on the dollar I made per paper sold. If it were a big collection week, I could spend more money knowing that 2 weeks later, after I handed my cut to the collector, I would be left with an empty hand, but not short. There was only one way to make more money: sell more subscriptions. Maybe more critical was to keep the subscriptions, keep the subscribers that I had. Making those door-to-door collections was my time to make a personal collection with the subscribers and put a face behind that plastic bag hitting their front porches. Consistency was just as important. Waking up late or blowing off work meant customers not receiving their daily news, which had a direct impact on my bank account. There was nowhere to hide and no one to blame when standing on a front porch asking a customer to pay their subscription. The bottom line, I kept my customers and I grew my route. When I started, I had about 20 homes that I delivered the daily news to. By the time I was retiring from the newspaper business at the ripe old age of 12, I'd grown that route to about 80 homes. I invested in a newspaper cart. I couldn't fit all 80 papers into the traditional Paperboy sack. I learned to ride my bike with no hands, needing one hand to hold the cart. Imagine riding a bike and dragging a hand truck behind the bike with one hand. My other hand would reach back, grab a paper from the cart, and then sling it onto front porches. My big break came in the 5th grade. The Bergen Record was having a promotion. New subscribers were being offered a deal. Get the first 3 months free. The thing was, I was the sales guy. It was up to me to walk door to door and make the pitch. I had this brilliant and very shady idea. It was me who was doing the whole job. I was selling, packaging, delivering, and collecting. Every 2 weeks, I would hand the large stack to the collector and be left with the short stack. This was my chance to be holding the large stack. During that promotion, I doubled the size of my route from 40 homes to the 80 homes that I retired from. The thing was, when selling those new subscriptions, I didn't mention the promotion. As far as the new subscribers knew, they were signing up for the paper just like anyone else. The collector wasn't looking for a cut from the new subscribers. Every dollar I collected from them stayed in my pocket. I was only 11 years old at the time and don't remember having any sort of feelings of guilt. I don't recall any thoughts about sticking it to the collector. I just knew that if I could sell a subscription without offering a promotion, I would keep 100% of the cash. They gave me a crutch. I didn't need the crutch. so I earned the cash. At least that's the way I was thinking about it as the Paperboy entrepreneur. Looking back, I feel so lucky to have had this experience. Writing this has been so much fun. I don't recall any feelings of work being a drag. It was a joy to wake up early and be out in my town when the streets were so quiet. It was a joy to watch the sunrise. Okay, I had my scares. I remember being chased by an angry dog. I remember the sweat dripping when the collector came and I was short. But on the whole, I enjoyed it. I got to meet my neighbors and ring doorbells all over town. I made my own money and was able to build a BMX bicycle. I could invest back into my business when buying that newspaper cart. When the promotion came to an end, the Bergen Record had a pool party at a local hotel and an awards ceremony. I was afraid of swimming and didn't like wearing shorts. I wouldn't have gone to that party and awkwardly sat by the pool in my jeans if it weren't for the fact that I was getting an award for selling the most subscriptions. That was my exit. My route was the envy of the neighborhood. It was the biggest route that made the most cash, but there was no way I was going back to making the small stack. I sold my cart and the route to another kid in town and retired to a beach house on the Jersey Shore. That last part's not true. I got a new job as a dishwasher at a Mexican restaurant. All right. I hope you enjoyed that. The sun is just getting worse, and I think the cicadas are getting louder, and I think it's a good time to wrap up this episode. So thank you for listening. Health, happiness, kindness, respect to every being and all things. Namaste.